House Democrats are planning to force a vote as early as tomorrow on a resolution blocking President Trump's emergency declaration for a border wall. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is now urging members to sign on as co-sponsors by tonight. Democrats are also looking to get GOP votes. If the resolution passes, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer would be able to force a vote in the GOP-led Senate. Republican Senator Susan Collins said yesterday that she would support a resolution of disapproval on the emergency declaration. And the Hill has identified 9 other Republican senators who may also vote to block the president's order. The White House promises a veto if the measure passes the Senate. All right, you are just brilliant with messaging. You've worked in a White House. What would you be telling this White House to do right now?
Well, this is a hard one for me because I'm in a different spot on this. You know, I think if Congress had never passed an agreement on the budget to keep the government open, then the president would have been right to declare an emergency because we need to protect the border. Congress enacted a compromise, and whether you like it or you don't like it, Congress acted, the president signed it into law. So I don't think he had the right grounds to declare an emergency here, particularly when he could have gotten so much of the funding additional to what was appropriated for the border as a result of the money he tapped from Treasury and the money he tapped from Justice. So he could have gotten so much of what he wanted without throwing down the gauntlet on emergency. And I am one who believes that if you call something an emergency, it should be bipartisan. It should be something that most people shake their head and go, yeah, thank goodness you did it, because this is an emergency.
Okay, so the White House won't call you on this one.
No, well, I have caller ID.
All right. So, Katie, is the president, though, right about being able to reallocate some funds to get this done if he doesn't call an emergency?
I mean, according to some of the statutes that Congress has enabled and given the president power to do, he does. You have Mike Lee, who is a strict constitutionalist, saying, look, I don't like it. It might be unconstitutional, but it's legal because Congress has ceded that power to the executive branch. And so my problem with this is maybe if Congress spent just as much time as they're doing to write this resolution of condemnation as they would solving the crisis that is one, that everyone has admitted is a crisis, whether you agree it's an emergency maybe is different, but there is a humanitarian crisis. It's getting worse, and the bill that Congress just passed is actually adding gasoline to the humanitarian fire. So maybe they should spend more of their time actually coming up with solutions to the current problem rather than doing this, this symbolism of we're condemning what the president has done.
You know, that the pessimistic flow of where we are, though, right now, Morgan, is that that's not politically expedient. What Katie is talking about, they're actually solving a problem.
Yeah, and I think what's ultimately going to happen here is the House will probably pass this, and in the Senate, Susan Collins has said she will already support it, and I think you only need, 4 Republicans in the Senate.
They say they have 8 or 9. I mean,
but what I don't think they will have is a veto-proof majority in the Senate. So ultimately, if this does get to the president, this is a political exercise on behalf of the Democrats because the president will clearly veto this bill.
But it will also be interesting how other Republicans in the Senate, and I mentioned this yesterday on the couch, there are a number of Republicans in the Senate up for re-election in 2020. People like Sonny Perdue and Tom Tillis and Joni Ernst, people who...
David Perdue, Sonny's
secretary. Sorry. Yeah. I'm having a moment. That was good.
They're my buddies. I love the Perdue.
Yes, Senator Perdue.
Deep knowledge.
So I think just having to put Republicans on the record on an issue that many of them have spoken out about in the past, it's executive power, they've spoken out on this issue. Getting them on the record, I think, is an important thing to do because they've been so outspoken. And there are a number of Republicans besides the Collins and Murkowski who have a political calculation to make.
It's all
about politics. But who have a political calculation to make about 2020 in their own re-election.
Before we have to scoot quickly here, Ari, I just want to get your opinion about something. You know, other presidents have declared emergencies, right? And they've used their executive order. Or executive privilege to do that. How is this seen differently? Democrats are threatening, and you see it, well, you know, maybe this could happen if you wanted to do it over gun violence, that sort of thing. But how is this different?
No, look, I think that's a fair point. And in the tit-for-tat world that politics is today, that's a justifiable position to take. And certainly
that other presidents have done it.
Well, Barack Obama's pen and phone. When President Obama said he could not do DACA and did DACA, he is the one who started this path to undermine rule of law. When President Obama found a way to appropriate money under Obamacare that wasn't appropriated, President Obama started this again. So I have a hard time also saying that Donald Trump is doing something that wasn't done before, especially by his immediate predecessor.
Do you think, though, it creates a snowball effect?
Yes, and that's why I oppose it.
It's the money
because
issue,
I'm trying to stand on a higher ground here that I think should unite the country and make us say emergency should be an emergency.
That's so sweet.
And so, you know, it's not going to, I understand that. but having served, I like to believe that,
Yeah,
and
no,
I
I
think that's
know.
where we should all be, frankly.
Yeah.
I can play tit-for-tat politics just as well as anybody else. Sometimes, especially after you leave government, you realize you shouldn't.
So how do you get it done? Because you've got walls in 600 plus miles. You've got barriers.
Well, here's the
You
thing,
don't.
Harris. The president could be
Yes,
celebrating
you
everything.
do. Have you been
You
to
don't get it
California?
done.
He could be building.
You
he
don't
could be
get it
building
done.
the 55 miles
People
that he now
don't
has
want
an
it.
appropriation for. He can be building even more than 55 with the additional funds he can legitimately tap. He can be holding ceremonies to talk about the new judges that are a part of this bill, all the
Right.
law enforcement equipment. This could be a celebration, moment after moment after moment, of a media moment for the president. Instead, we're stuck here in the morass of is it or is it not an emergency? Will it get struck down in court, and will Congress act against him? He picked through the emergency a whole bunch of trappings that are going to take away from all the celebrations he could have had over his enacting border
He could still
security.
do it. He could
But
still
he's
have
got
this
both
over.
now instead of just wins.
All right.
We will have a national emergency, and we will then be sued, and they will sue us in the Ninth Circuit, even though it shouldn't be there, and we will possibly get a bad ruling, and then we'll get another bad ruling, and then we'll end up in the Supreme Court.
He's like Karnak from Carson. He had it all down. Of course he was right. The 16 left-wing states suing President Trump. And of course, it's all been assigned to Oakland, California-based judge Haywood Gilliam, an Obama appointee. Perfect. This all played out just as constitutional expert John Eastman and I predicted last night. You can find a district court judge, as we've seen in all these challenges, John, to the president's temporary travel ban, so many other moves. You can find a district court judge to issue a nationwide injunction thwarting the president's policy, at least for a time.
Well, they have, and they judge shop. They brought this in the Northern District of California, where there's not a single judge that was appointed by a Republican.
No, I got to get more judges on that court. The legal merits of the case are one thing, but there are plenty of glaring national security examples to support the president's move. Just this week, 6 illegals linked to a Mexican cartel arrested in North Carolina for drug trafficking, meth and heroin. Now, the massive operation including transporting large amounts of coke and meth across state lines. In Louisiana, U.S. Customs Border Protection arrested a convicted child sex offender who had been previously deported. Hiberub Hernandez Martinez was convicted in 2009 of first-degree sexual offense involving a child and served 84 months, in prison. After his release, they say he was deported, I guess, in 2016, but then he made his way back here. Joining me now to discuss is Tom Homan, former acting director of ICE, Fox News contributor. Tom, we just learned tonight that House Democrats plan on introducing their own resolution blocking Trump's border in his border wall plan. Thoughts?
That doesn't surprise me. Look, the president had it right from the beginning, right? He knew he's going to be sued. Everything he's done since he's been president to try to secure this border and try to enforce our immigration laws, every time he has made a move, he's been sued. And he was right. Remember, him and Chief Justice had it out over some tweets saying, well, the Ninth Circuit's weak and they're going to shut.
Totally right. John Roberts should be ashamed of himself for
Exactly.
saying what he said.
And sure enough, they went to the Ninth Circuit. You didn't see him going to the Fifth Circuit. They go to the Ninth Circuit. So, of course, they judge shop. But I think he wins this in the long run. I really do.
Larry Hogan, governor of Maryland, Republican, he may run a primary President Trump. Good luck, Larry. Anyway, he said this on CBS this morning.
I think the president made some real mistakes here, and I don't think declaring this, using the declaration of emergency powers is the right thing to do, and I think it should be challenged. We've exaggerated what's going on at the border.
I don't know how much time he spent on the border, Tom. He's obviously Maryland is bordering on insanity with taxes, but it's not a border state.
I can guarantee you he hasn't been to the border. He hasn't talked to one man and woman in green. He certainly hasn't looked at the data on the border. You know what? Let's just look up the border patrol this past year. Arrest of MS-13 members up 170%. Seizure of fentanyl is up 184%. 17,000 criminals arrested crossing the border. ICE arrested 138,000 criminal aliens in this country here illegally that committed crimes. They didn't just appear here. They came across the southwest border. If anybody doesn't see it, they're ignoring the facts. And it disappoints me. Well, their state's considering a state sanctuary law right now. They're arguing that.
Of course. Maryland, go all across Maryland. It's a haven for illegal immigrants. Same thing with Northern Virginia. Fairfax County. Go out to Prince William County. I mean, this is this whole area is now dealing with
I'm surprised Larry Horgan says this since they have a serious MS-13 problem in Maryland.
We had the murder. The girl stabbed how many times? I think it was in Maryland or Virginia, but it was a horrific crime. This is what Elizabeth Warren, of course, I won't do my impersonation, but you heard it during the break. It's actually pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Tom, let's hear what she has to say.
What would constitute a national emergency?
Oh, let's do the list. Climate change, gun violence, student loan debt, right off the top.
Student loan debt.
It's incredible. You know, she talked about gun violence. Democrats just passed some legislation in the House that if an illegal alien attempts to buy a firearm, ATF's not even allowed to contact ICE. And she's talking about gun violence. So she wants to, take away the Second Amendment from the U.S. citizens, but it's perfectly okay for you, for illegal aliens to try to purchase a gun, which is a felony. They want ICE to turn their back on felonies.
Oh, DUI, they don't want DUI to matter anymore. So if you run over someone, you're a legal immigrant, get to stay.
10,000 people a year died from DUI, and Menendez doesn't think that's a crime.
Tom, I also want to get your thoughts on this. Last Saturday in El Paso, Texas, we're just broadcasting, we saw leftist lunacy on full display. Protesters went into a Border Patrol museum and decided to deface pictures honoring fallen agents. But that's not all. They also decided to call Border Patrol agents murderers.
Actually, a lot of these Border Patrol agents are murderers. That's what they are. They have murdered families. They have murdered youth. They have slashed any humanitarian aid that's given to them at the border like water.
We need to push back in every way we can.
I don't know if that was an indigenous person. I'm not quite sure what was
Well, first of all, I find it disgusting because they actually defaced a monument to 128 fallen heroes who died in line of duty protecting this country. They defaced that monument. They're ignorant because they don't know the facts of what they're saying. Everything they said, I watched that video, they're wrong. I'm 100% of things they said, they're absolutely wrong. And they're cowards. And they're cowards, I say this because a lot of them are wearing masks. If they really want to protest the Border Patrol, don't go to a museum that's not even owned by the Border Patrol and run by retirees. Go to a Border Patrol station and deface a Border Patrol station. Let's see how far they get with that. They won't. They're cowards. They're hiding, and they hide behind a false message to the American people.
Tom Homan, they're either defacing statues honoring the end of World War II, ripping down statues, historical markers, or defacing monuments.
Not one of those protesters has a backbone or the bravery to wear that uniform and defend this country. I doubt anyone has ever served their country in any capacity.
Victimhood mentality. We started the show with that. They all see themselves as victims and the oppressed. Tom, thank you so much.